This is the new era. This is the new band, and we're unbreakable.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology. We can make him better than he was. Better, stronger, faster. Actually, better, stronger,
faster. Is that a
faster.
line from Starship Troopers or something?
No, it's actually the $1 Million
It's
Man.
$6 Million Man. I know that, and
I don't even know what that is.
We Brits don't do excitement, so this is the best you're gonna get.
Chris is bringing the noise today, apparently.
Speaking of vanilla,
It's just, I don't understand why.
I don't think anyone does. I don't think Travis Green understands.
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust. This is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com and CKNW.com. Here they are, fresh from folding towels, sharpening skates, and washing jock straps. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Matt Lee with you here in studio. Anna Forsyth sitting directly across from me. You can follow her at aforsyth03. Not in studio. Chris Skolden at Lightforce at his post-holiday dinner.
Yeah, I can work it out, but
Basically, he gave us the heads up saying that he would be away last week, because of the fact his boss was taking him out for dinner, and he wasn't going to say no to a free meal.
which is fair, I think, but still dead to us.
It better be good. What do you think he's having? Do you think it's somewhere between like McDonald's and Cactus Club, or is it fancier than Cactus Club?
I don't think it's fancier than Cactus Club. I would say Cactus Club.
You know what I'm talking
is
about,
maybe
like
the level.
Cactus Club, Joey's.
Yeah. That's the sort of level I'm
the
thinking.
chain ones.
Yeah.
He's not at Gotham Steakhouse.
No.
Steak at the Keg was from Nexus 187.
No, that's still too fancy, I think.
Yes.
I think.
I just had Steak at the Keg the other day, by the way.
Was it good?
It was. I had 6 different gift cards with money on it.
That's pretty decent.
Well, yeah, it was just an accumulation over the years. A lot of birthday. It's a favorite in the Lee house.
Oh,
Keg
yeah.
gift
No,
cards.
it's a good one.
Also not in studio, Adam Ovenel Carter. He was supposed to be here. I would just like to say.
Okay, I wondered where you're going to go with this. Matt's gone for selling him down the river.
I am going to sell him down the river. He is the Nikolai Goldobin to our roster right now. So immensely talented, and yet he finds a way to let me down.
Benched himself, really, on this one.
He really did bench himself. He said,
Benched
you know
on
what?
Bowen.
Sorry, I got to bench myself. On a serious note, he's in Bowen Island, wasn't available. You will hear from him later in the F word, which he did send us. So that'll be coming up in about 5 or so minutes. Anna, it's the first time we are in studio together in 2019.
I know. Do you feel different?
It feels like a whole day since I've seen you.
Yeah, it is. Literally less than 24 hours.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Ada and I both at the Larsheider section yesterday for the Canucks versus Panthers game. A pretty good game, which we will get into a little bit later on in Rewind as well. Lots to get into today in general, Anna, including an Off the Rails podcast, which we will bring to our Patreon subscribers after today's show. Basically, we will talk a little bit just to give a sneak peek about what today's Off the Rails would be. We're talking about dream sports trips.
Yeah, and that's inspired
by...
by...
bucket list sports trips.
Yeah, inspired by 2 of our listeners, the Evans brothers, who we both met yesterday.
Yeah, a special shout out to Jonathan and Matt Evans. They came in all the way from the UK. Do you know whereabouts in the UK?
Yeah, they're from, like, Watford, which is just north of London, so, like, close
How do
enough.
I say it?
Watford.
So, shout out to Watford, London, where the brother...
No, it's not in London. That's very important.
Okay.
It's very important.
How do I do this?
You don't know how important
Shout out
it
to
is.
Watford. Shout out to my homies in Watford.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Shout out to the Evans brothers, homies in Watford, who embarked on a amazing Canada road trip. Which, okay, so help me backtrack from here because I'm very bad at what is our schedule here. Did it start in Toronto?
No, Ottawa.
Started in Ottawa, then it went to Montreal, then Toronto, then back in Vancouver. Were they at a game in Vancouver beforehand, though?
Yeah, not before the road trip. They went to the 2 home games that we've just had. So it was
the Florida one and the Arizona one.
Yeah.
Okay. So a great road trip for them, a huge experience. Not their first time in Vancouver, but generally they seem to have a great time on their road trip. I'm jealous because I was telling the Evans brothers yesterday when we met up with them, I've never been to some of those cities that they've been to.
No.
I think they mentioned they had gone to Florida or Tampa Bay for one of their other previous road trips.
So they've made a
So
decent
they've
go
made
for
their
it.
they've made their way throughout the NHL arena so far, and so that'll be the subject of our later Off the Rails episode. But yes, a special shout out to Jonathan and Matt Evans, two of our C4 listeners who we got to meet yesterday. Coming up today, Anna, though, we will briefly discuss that weekend tilt against those Panthers. Should Matheson have answered the bell? When is Elias Pettersson getting back into the lineup? It's been like a week, and I'm losing my mind. I can't watch this team when he's not here. We will also talk about when Thatcher Demko will get into a game. He's been up here for a while, has yet to start in a game. Plus, we will hand out some mid-season awards to the best and worst of the Vancouver Canucks. All that coming up here. C4 Podcast, CanucksHockeyBlog.com. And that will cue the F word with Adam.
F word.
So we'll talk about that. That takes place now. He was talking about Travis Green being a favorite for the Jack Adams. We'll get into that right away.
Hey guys, another edition of the F Word featuring your favorite podcast host, Adam FOC. Just want to talk briefly about Bo Horvat, the man who should be the Canucks captain. That fight against Boston, that's what I think that's what everyone was looking for in the game where Pettersson got injured. That's the kind of stuff you want to see. And that goal, this guy should be captain. It's amazing he isn't already. I don't know what the holdup is. When you get guys who are, 25 and under all across the league, being captains already, what's the holdup with Horvat? I hate this idea of not having a captain. Just give it to the clear and obvious guy. He stands up for everything you'd want as a Canuck. He's got that. He's the most bending player I could possibly imagine, but he actually goes above the meat and potatoes and has quite a bit of talent to go along with it. So I don't know. I'm just pretty fired up about that. Let's see how it goes, and let's get Horvat captain. All right, guys, that's another edition of the F Word with Adam FOC.
So, Anna, based off of what we heard from Adam just now in the F Word, basically there seems to be a little bit of discussion about how maybe Travis Green is a Jack Adams candidate. First of all, are you buying the hype?
No.
No, not even a little bit?
I think it maybe speaks to that it's not been a great year for coaching in the NHL. We've seen a lot of questionable decisions maybe. But
a couple coaches getting fired as well in that process.
And it does seem to be a changing of the tide, and the old managers maybe just can't, the old school way of thinking. It's maybe phasing out a little bit, but Travis Green has been fine. But if we're talking about him as a great coach, I don't buy it. Okay, so let's put it this way. He's been a good coach this season, but in your mind, not quite a Jack Adams candidate. No, and I don't actually have a replacement who I would suggest. Right. Okay, so that was going to be part of my next question, and this is me stalling for time as I look at the NHL standings and trying to figure out which teams have sort of punched above their weight class, if you will. But you look at the overall standings this year, Calgary, I can't remember who their coach is, Bill Peters, if I'm not mistaken, who was fired from Carolina and came in to replace Glenn Gulletson. Oh, yeah. The Calgary Flames, top 3, I think, in the NHL at the moment. I think you have to think Bill Peters is one of those candidates. Yeah, especially, since it's a changing of the guard there, and really Calgary were pretty poor. Yep. In recent years. The Las Vegas Golden Knights seem to be back as well, and so you'd like to think, and his name escapes me again, but he was obviously there last season for their expansion year. Gerard Gallant, that's the name. Yes. He has to be back in the running again as well, I believe. Right. Did he win it last year? I can't remember who won it last year. I'll look it up while you talk about it. But I bet he didn't, but he should have. But that doesn't necessarily mean he should get a compensatory pick this year. I think Calgary is a good shout. I don't know who else would necessarily. Here's another one that I was thinking of, and by the way, it was Gerard Gallant last year, and this is the Jack Adams Award winner from 2017, and maybe this is a popular or an unpopular opinion. But how about John Tortorella for the Columbus Blue Jackets? Again, the Columbus Blue Jackets, despite the fact that you see this quote-unquote gong show with Sergei Bobrovsky, they are right in the middle of it in the Metropolitan Division in a playoff spot as we speak. And so that's true, I guess what I'm saying is, has Travis Green been a good coach? I think there's no doubt about that. If the Vancouver Canucks were to somehow, by the grace of God, make the playoffs, maybe he is a candidate. But I think that's what it hinges on the most. Yeah. Because I think both you and I would back the opinion that they shouldn't be targeting the playoffs, but that's not really in the coach's hands to shape the whole organization. So if, his job is to win every game, but just considering what a good coach he was in Utica, and one of his strong suits would be development. And on a side note, it does seem like that's gone downhill since he left. There's just a few players like Goldobin, Goldobin would be the principal one, where you just say that his development is slightly wasted, and then there's some just questionable deployment in the defensive region, I would say. So
your issue with Green has been some of that questionable deployment.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Yep.
And I know he's, I'm trying to find a clean version of this expression.
Okay, let's talk about
just it's hard. He's got a hard job, but he doesn't have a lot of. He's trying to make bricks without straw.
I mean, you think about other things. Tim Schaller gets into the lineup more often than not, and I think that seems to be more of a coach's decision more than politics, if you will. So there is a little bit to be said about some of the moves that Travis Green has made in terms of deployment. The other thing is how much of the Canucks' success this year obviously has hinged on Elias Pettersson making Green look as good as he has.
Right, and the thing is, I'm picking holes here where I don't necessarily want to, because I think he has been a good coach, but if you're putting him up as best in the NHL, then you've got to look... I think you have to be better than he is, and he's doing pretty well, but yeah, he's not Jack Adams worthy in my mind.
So I am buying a little bit into what Adam is selling, and I do think that as much as we can have those feel-good feelings about Travis Green and the job he's done this year, by no means do I think that he's a Jack Adams candidate yet. Again, if they were to somehow squeak into the playoffs, though, I think the conversation changes a little bit.
Sure, and he's doing his best with a developing team, and you would hope that, given that he's on this journey with the team, that they do give him the patience to figure it out over the long term as the roster changes and as it rebuilds a bit more.
Shout out to Trev Goldie and Nexus 187, two of our live listeners at the moment who are weighing in on the conversation. Nexus saying not at all, but Travis Green might get some consideration as well. We will talk about goaltending a little bit later, which is where that conversation has sort of deviated. But let's talk a bit about the Florida game, Anna. And you and I were both there. We saw the game live. Mike Matheson, from what we had seen all the way up in the Larsheider section, it looked like there was a little bit of bumping, a little bit of physical stuff. But as I said in Discord, nothing quite home to write about. It does seem in the post-game comments afterwards that there was an attempt maybe by, let's say, Antoine Roussel to engage with Mike Matheson.
Even Bo Horvat, yeah.
And even Bo Horvat seemed to give a little bit of a jab Mike Matheson's way. In your mind, and consider what you hear in the quote-unquote code, did Mike Matheson have an obligation to answer the bell to one of those Canucks players who were trying to engage with him?
The thing is, I do genuinely hate the code and all of that nonsense.
Seems archaic.
Yeah, it's a little archaic. At the same time, Mike Matheson doesn't exactly strike me as this player that just...
He's not a fighter, first of all.
He's not a fighter, but he's... I don't know. You just have to wonder why. That, did they get specifically told not to fight? Mm-hmm. I know players have been in the past. I think Lapierre kept being told not to fight.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not against fighting getting minimized, but I don't think it necessarily helps. Canucks have this narrative that they're not protecting their stars, especially Pettersson. So they were going to get a fight out of them. And, yeah, Matheson was just determined it wasn't going to be him.
I will say this, and I can't say I heard this myself, but I had heard anecdotally from Roberto Luongo's appearance on the Merrick and Friedman podcast that there was some discussion about Mike Matheson saying that if he gets asked to fight, he should fight. Something along those lines in respect of the Elias Pettersson incident back in October.
So Luongo said that?
Yeah, I think so. And again, I can't say I heard this myself, but... And just to take the contrarian opinion to what you said, I feel that if you're an NHL player and you are challenged to a fight repeatedly, you should just answer the bell and get it over with.
Yeah, the thing is, it might come out worse for you if you don't, honestly.
It could. And we've seen that firsthand here as Vancouver Canucks fans, Bertuzzi, Steve Moore. But I just feel that if Mike Matheson gets asked to fight, not necessarily by Roussel, but Horvat and Beagle and whoever that night, I think he could have just done himself a favor and maybe even actually commanded the respect of his opponent if he just answered the bell and got it over with. And I think everybody wipes their hands clean and we move on from that incident after this.
True. I would say the thing is it's slightly about optics, isn't it? Because Canucks didn't want to look bad and they wanted to challenge Matheson. But in a way, that's almost better for them, isn't it? That making Matheson into this pantomime villain by like him refusing to fight was almost a better part of the narrative.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it certainly doesn't paint him in a better light. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So
and the Canucks, to their point, had also said and done all the things that they should be saying in the post game of it, which was that they were fighting for 2 points, they're still in the playoff hunt, et cetera, make them hurt on the scoreboard, whatnot. At the end of the day, I do think that there is something to be said that Matheson maybe should have answered the bell, and he didn't. And at the end of the day, I mean, it makes for great conversation, and you and I heard quite vividly during the game all the boos that Mike Matheson got every time he touched the puck.
Yeah, I was having to explain it to my visiting Australian friend, and I said, it's kind of confusing because we've got a boo Mike Matheson, then Luongo, and then also we have a Louis that we can Lou as well, but he doesn't usually do anything.
It's not quite Vancouver without theatrics of something like that, where there is a villain and there is a hero. And I think Mike Matheson is just right up there where you have Duncan Keith, who is just as much of a villain in Vancouver.
Right, and it's kind of adding to this little rivalry that's being created between Vancouver and Florida, kind of going from friends to enemies a little bit.
So let's move on from the Mike Matheson incident, and let's talk about Thatcher Demko, first of all. He's been up with the Vancouver Canucks for, I want to say, a couple weeks now, somewhere around those lines. When was the Anders Nielsen trade now?
So I guess
it was during the Ottawa trade, so it's about a period of close to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He's yet to start in a game this season for the Vancouver Canucks. He's obviously been with the team, been practicing with the team. Jacob Markstrom, and we can get into goaltending now, has been playing pretty well. We saw firsthand in the Florida game a couple of point-blank opportunities, more specifically the glove save he had on Nick Bjugstad.
Yeah.
Jacob Markstrom has been playing lights out, but we all know that the inevitable road leads to Thatcher Demko being the future. So I ask you this. When is the best time, and what is the plan for Thatcher Demko?
Well, I think it's a tricky time as well because we're playing so few games because of the All-Star game, because of our more punishing schedule earlier on in the season. So it's... I don't know if they're waiting because they think that Markstrom doesn't really need the break anymore. So they're waiting till it gets a bit tighter and Markstrom could use the night off.
It is a favorable part of their schedule right now. Like, we've seen quite a gap in between games. Like the Arizona to the Florida game, it was like 3 or 4 nights, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think there was 3 or 4 nights either side of the Arizona game. So.
And so, like, when you're playing 2 games in the span of maybe 8 days, sure, you go with the guy who's going to give you the best chance to win a game. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, that's about it. I was just saying that, like, a game like Florida was... especially just when you have the D that you have, it's not exactly an easy game to throw yourself onto. And you would think that Florida, the year they're having, it might be a good fertile ground, but I guess Travis Green decided that his experimentation would be to mix the D up a little bit, so you don't necessarily want to do that and throw in a new goalie who's only had one NHL start, but, you know, he has to get one sooner or later, and you almost feel like it could be built up in his head to be worse the more he waits.
Looking at the Canucks schedule as a whole, I mean, there aren't a whole lot of back-to-backs coming up. The next one not being until February 13th and 14th, and that's a road trip or a California road swing against the Ducks and the Kings. So it's certainly not going to come off the heels of a back-to-back. So if you think about the short-term plan for Thatcher Demko, I mean, is it for him maybe a soft start, if you will, against a easy opponent that maybe he gets in?
But then who is that?
And exactly. I mean, that opportunity could have been against the Arizona Coyotes, for instance.
Yeah. And, you know, that would be a game maybe with less pressure because there wasn't that many people watching it and even fewer when the TV went out. So, yeah.
The one thing I'm looking at on the schedule right now, January 20th, they've got a game against the Detroit Red Wings at home, so that's next Sunday. It's another one of those weird afternoon matinee games, 1 p.m.
Oh, yeah,
that one seems to me to be a Thatcher Demko kind of game. I could see that being his game, but to be honest, you look at the short-term game, Edmonton, Buffalo, those are winnable games, and especially the Edmonton game where it's a Pacific Division rival. It's going to be back to Markstrom, I think, for that game.
Yeah,
Buffalo has been very good this year as well, and I think Jacob Markstrom will be up for that one as well. So I don't think it's Thatcher Demko time anytime soon for the next 5 or 6 days.
And I know everyone's paying for it, and I don't know, it might be fun, and it might be a good thing just because Canucks fans want to see what they have.
Mm-hmm. Long-term wise, what's the plan for Thatcher Demko? It doesn't appear that the Canucks are going to be in the market for another goaltender this offseason. It seems quite evident that it will be Jacob Markstrom and Thatcher Demko for 2019-2020. How many games do you see Thatcher Demko playing next season?
I think it will be a more closer to even split, but I do think that Demko will still be the backup.
Like the clear backup.
The clear backup.
Whereas the Markstrom-Nielsen thing coming into this year was a 1A, 1B situation. It's a clear 1 and 2 for you.
Yes, but it will just be closer.
Percentage-wise, what do you think?
Percentage-wise. Like something like 50-something.
For Markstrom?
Yeah.
See, I'm thinking it's actually going to be more than that. I think it might be 55-60 for Markstrom next season. I think the Canucks themselves also want to really give the ball to Jacob Markstrom. And I think there's a bit of an obligation to give the ball to Jacob Markstrom and seeing how much he can do in a quote-unquote bell cow role as a goaltender. And I think 55-60 seems to be within Markstrom's capabilities.
Yeah, and in the short term, like, he's surprised us all this year, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think they're in any way going to rush Demko. And he's had, as we say, 1 NHL start still.
Yeah. So I'm saying about 20 to 25 games for Thatcher Demko next year. Nexus 187 chiming in saying 25 to 30 maybe for Demko. So there does seem to be a range of outcomes for what Thatcher Demko can do for the Canucks in the long term. But I think it's quite clear that there is a plan in place for Demko to obviously be the starter of the future, maybe the franchise goaltender of the future. But you don't want to rush him in at the same time. And this is just part of the trajectory for Thatcher Demko, and it's easing him into an everyday NHL role.
Yeah, and I think I can understand the frustration because he seems like he's so close.
Shiny, new prospect. He's done everything in Utica, etc.
Yeah, and now we actually have him in Vancouver. It's like, what do we actually have?
But you also have to continue on with what the plan has been for quite some time for Thatcher Demko.
Yeah, and honestly, that's one of the few things where I can say that I actually have faith in that plan.
One more thing on goaltending before we get towards half full, half empty. Roberto Luongo. Is it the last time we see him in Vancouver?
Possibly.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it's they're like starting to play the music. You know, the get off stage music, and that doesn't make me feel good because honestly, I thought he looked pretty good.
He looked phenomenal, actually, I thought, yesterday. Maybe it was the Canucks making him look good.
At close range.
I said it in the game chat in Discord yesterday. He stole Brock Besser's lunch and his snack pack dessert that game.
It's a good line.
Yeah, I mean, Roberto Luongo statistically has had a pretty poor season by his standards. And some of that obviously being with respect to injuries, like just hard luck with injuries this year. But when he's out there and he's feeling the confidence, he looks like the same guy that was playing for the Vancouver Canucks all the way up until 2014.
Yeah.
And for me, I've read the stories and I've talked a lot about I've read a lot about his quote unquote legacy in Vancouver. I just think in Roberto Luongo's heart, he's not ready to call it quits. And judging by what we saw yesterday, he doesn't look like he's ready to call it quits. I think Luongo still has some game left in him.
I think you're right in terms of his mentality. Mm-hmm. But as you say, the injuries are starting to pile up. And I hope it's not a decision that's taken out of his hands, but you just wonder. It doesn't seem like good noise is coming out.
No, this is true. Trev Goldie making a good point about the cap hit if he retires. And, of course, I think Chris is the gospel keeper of the cap recapture penalty for the Vancouver Canucks, and it's not pretty the earlier he retires. So it's even in the Canucks' best interest for him to continue playing into next year. And I and you can tell me I'm wrong on this later in the summer if it gets to this, but I just can't see Roberto Luongo retiring after this season.
Okay, and I hope you're right, because if we can watch him making saves like he did yesterday for another year, that'd be great, and diminish the cap recapture penalty slightly.
Thank God Chris isn't here, by the way, to make the whole Bring Luongo Home campaign.
Yeah.
We'll take a break, come back with half full, half empty, talking about Elias Pettersson when he returns to the lineup. Plus, we will give out the midseason grades to the Vancouver Canucks' best and worst thus far into the season. All coming up here, C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on it.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? And that because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He didn't play. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
So, Anna, it has been, what is it? You know how they have those signs up in workplaces, like blank days since an accident?
Yeah.
We need one of those for how long it's been without Elias Pettersson in this lineup.
Yeah, it's been how many days since
And
the
I want to
accident?
say it's been about 9 days, 8 days. It's just short of the Ottawa game, right? Because obviously he played in the Ottawa game.
So, Montreal game.
Then the Montreal game was where Pettersson was hurt. So I think we're coming
2
up on
days
about,
after Ottawa?
I want to say about 8 or 9 days, which is about right for what had been diagnosed as a sprained MCL.
And they said 2 weeks, right?
I think so, 1 to 2 weeks. So we're looking at that time frame not having changed. Elias Pettersson, of course, has been skating as well, not necessarily taking part in practice. But the question I want to ask you, the Canucks, I think coming into tonight, were a single point out of a wild card spot. And I know you're not buying the hype necessarily on the playoffs. But for a team that clearly, I think if you ask that locker room how they feel, they want to go for the playoffs. If you're Travis Green, what do you do with Elias Pettersson in terms of trying to get him back into your lineup? Do you take the more reserved, calm approach, letting him rest fully? Or is it a, if you can go, let's go kind of a play?
I think that will come back to bite you, even at some point down the road. And I think it's pretty dumb. It will probably come back to bite you this season if you push him before he's ready. So, and then what do you do if he gets injured again as we make the playoffs? And
so despite the fact that we are, quote unquote, close in the playoff hunt, it is a conservative approach that you must take with Elias Pettersson.
I think so. And I think he has just been unlucky with injuries. I don't think there's a concern.
Mm-hmm.
But given that one of the injuries was concussion, like that's a big one that you don't want to repeat.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, what's the point in rushing him back? Because it'll just become a problem later on. And I know it's sad to watch the Canucks without Pettersson, and the Canucks players do play better when he's on the ice. Not just Goldobin, but Besser's been a bit dry of late since Petey stopped playing. So I get it, but yeah, it's not a good idea.
I think I've kind of echoed your sentiments before in last week's show, but again, you do have to take your time with Elias Pettersson. He is the franchise of this team. We've read in The Athletic just today about how Elias Pettersson has changed the trajectory of this team going forward, and he has changed how players are perceived in the NHL as well. Pettersson, just one person in his rookie year, has changed how the NHL looks at the Vancouver Canucks. And for me, that's something to indicate that you don't mess around with an MCL knee injury. And I think that the Canucks will be smart about it, that they will take their time with him and not rush him back. And clearly they are able to win games without Pettersson. But yeah, I admit, the hockey is not great to watch without Elias Pettersson.
Yeah, and I guess the frustrating thing would be getting shut out whilst he's not there, and you just think, can the Canucks score without him? But they did. They scored a lot yesterday. Took them a while, but it is possible. It's just, yeah, it is harder, but we can do it.
By the way, going back to the cap recapture penalty, Nexus 187 posting this for us in the patron chat. The cap hit for Roberto Luongo if he retires this year would be $2.8 million for the next 3 years.
Okay.
It'd be 4.2 if he retires in 2020 for 2 years, and it would be a whopping 8.5 million if he retires in 2021 for 1 year.
Okay. I mean, it's gonna be bad either way, right?
I say 4 more years,
4 more
Roberto.
years.
Get us past that 2021 hump.
But realistically, he's not going to play until the end of his contract.
Probably not. Even the most eternal of optimists could not see Luongo playing another 3 or 4 years.
And the Canucks have been pretty smart with that cap situation and been able to leverage it a bit. So, they'll just have to be a little smarter and maybe make a few more adjustments.
Getting back to Elias Pettersson, this question from Bob Mountford on our Facebook page. Love the blog. Missed you long time from December 18th. Sorry, that's Anna's bad. Dual national Brit. Retired back to UK in 2001. Never missed a Canucks game. Watch on NHL TV. Regarding Pettersson, we do need to send the message. Looking forward to the next blog. Cheers from Silly Suffolk. Anna will tell you where it is. Bob, where the hell is Suffolk, Anna?
Suffolk, for one.
Okay, to be fair, it's spelled Suffolk.
Yeah, well, that's just...
I don't call Vancouver Vancouver because it's French-Canadian.
That is just the way it is with British place names. They are pronounced very differently from how they're spelled.
Okay, so what is it called one more time?
Suffolk.
I can't say that. It's half a swear word right there.
Yeah.
I want to maintain our PG-13 rating.
Okay.
Anywho.
Yeah, it's like, if you look at the UK and there's the sticky out bit on the bottom right, it kind of sticks out. Yeah.
No.
Okay, well, that's where it is. It's like northeast of London, but just by a few hours. It's the countryside. I think I can't think of a single city that's there. There's Norwich in Norfolk, but yeah. Okay,
you just said a whole bunch of other places I don't know. But in regard to Bob's message, did the Canucks need to send the message?
Yeah, I think so.
EP Matheson, we'll talk about that just one little bit more. But
yeah, I think so.
Was the message sent, though?
I don't think yet. I think it seemed quite...
When are we playing Florida next?
It seemed quite transparent, didn't it? Like, oh, we've been accused of not protecting him again. I just think the way they deal with, first of all, like, Pettersson getting attacked and then... Attacked is probably a bit strong, but
Body slammed.
Body slammed, but after
you
it
got the
happens
Triple
again,
H spine buster.
Even though
you don't know what that means.
No, I don't. I do know who Triple H is a wrestler. I do know that. But yeah, and I think the Coach Kanyemi incident was quite different, but they just don't help themselves, do they? The way they talk about it afterwards.
Yeah. Last thing on the Pettersson thing, and we will move on, I promise. If the Canucks don't play Florida until next season, is it just petty for the Vancouver Canucks to try and engage with Matheson almost like a full calendar year?
Yeah, I wouldn't be so...
Like the time to do it was yesterday, in other words. And that's the only time now.
Yeah, but I think the more general point stands of making sure that it looks like you're willing to stand up for your players. And it doesn't always mean fighting. It just means getting in someone's face or being a bit of a nuisance, but just showing that you won't take it lightly.
Yeah. We'll move on from the Elias Pettersson, Mike Matheson thing here. Let's talk about midseason grades. We're getting to that point of the podcast where we're giving out midseason grades. As opposed to giving out letter grades to every single player, let's do the 3 best and 3 worst. Okay. I'll let you go first, and then I can't pick the same person that you did.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, do you want to I go first on 3 best and you go first on 3 worst and then
No, you have to go first and then I'll go next and then I'll go back to you and we'll do 3 each, okay?
All right.
3. So the best player on the Canucks at midseason.
Well, it's pretty easy, isn't it?
Okay, we move on. Nothing needs to be said. Elias Pettersson, number 1.
Yeah, A+.
This is hard and I'm agonizing this in my brain and this is me off the cuff. And this is also me stalling for time while my brain computes this. I will say the second best player this season on the Vancouver Canucks after Elias Pettersson is Bo Horvat.
Okay. And what grade would you give him? Well, no, we're not.
We won't give grades. We'll just give the best to the worst.
Then third best.
Yeah.
Brock Besser.
Oh, okay. See, that's not who I was going to say.
Okay.
My best one was going to be Jacob Markstrom.
Okay, well, he was after Brock Besser, so.
For me, it would have been Markstrom and then Besser. Okay, so back to you. So you've done 2 each. So this is your last best one.
Gosh.
She saved best for number 2. The best. Never mind. This is where it gets kind of tricky, right?
Yeah, because not that there haven't been any other good players, but
I can think of a couple, and I think it's down between 2 for me.
Okay, I'm gonna pick Chris Tanev just because he does his job.
That wasn't who I was gonna pick. Actually, no, there's a few candidates here that I was gonna pick. Okay, you can go with Chris Tanev, but I think I got to go with Alex Edler.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was between the two of them, and I don't really know who was better. But
and if we're continuing to play the game, you go next. Let's keep playing the game here. So after Tanev and after Edler. I know we're getting down to the nitty gritty here.
This is tricky.
Yeah, you go next. I got my next one.
Okay. So yeah, if we're gonna pick quarter season, I probably would have picked Jake, but that has cooled off significantly.
He has cooled off significantly.
See, something in my mind wants to pick Tyler Mott just because he's been way better than
relative to expectations.
Yeah.
Sure. Is that who you're gonna go with?
Yeah.
Okay, that's wrong, but whatever. I'm gonna go with Antoine Roussel.
Oh, that was a good pick.
That was a good pick.
Yeah.
Since you're kind of stumped from here, I'll end it by saying the honorable mentions for me would be Ben Hutton.
Yeah.
And then probably Troy Stecher.
Yeah, actually, I want to pick Troy Stecher rather than
Hutton?
Than Mott.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think Hutton is better than Stecher, though. See, this is, again, going back to your relative to expectations, though.
Yeah, perhaps, but I think what we've seen is a resurgence from Hutton, but I think it's been steady growth from Stecher right from the start.
Steady growth for Stecher, yes, but Hutton has definitely, by leaps and bounds, I would say, actually rebounded from what was a very I can't even get into the lineup season last year.
Yeah, and I think we both said that we had the faith that Travis Green saw him as a project.
Yeah.
And fair play to him, he has developed. So that would be a little check mark for Travis Green.
It's hard for me to put any of the likes of Sven Baertschi or Nikolai Goldobin in this list because I think they've just kind of been okay.
Well, I would say Sven Baertschi has been great since he came back into the lineup.
It's kind of an incomplete for me because he's missed so much of this season.
Yeah.
Okay. Nikolai Goldobin, I'm super souring on, and I want to cheer for him to be better, but
Well, the thing is, how can he be better? He's not been given the chance to. And
he's been given the chance. Come on. Like, Nikolai Goldobin, yes, we could talk about deployment and him being occasionally healthy scratch, but it's not like he hasn't been getting opportunities with Pettersson and power play time.
Okay, but then look at a player like Granlund. But
Granlund, we can't compare.
Granlund is still getting into the lineup. Goldobin isn't, and how?
That's true. Granlund does get into the lineup when Goldobin doesn't. But Granlund doesn't get the opportunities that Goldobin does when Goldobin is in the lineup.
It's true. But I need to read the full article. But I did see something about just comparing stats-wise Brock Besser to Goldobin.
Yeah, essentially, I think it was from Pasitiboulis, who literally said something along the lines of, Besser is just as dependent on Pettersson as Goldobin is dependent on Pettersson. I mean, everybody's dependent on Pettersson.
Yeah.
But yes, the point is taken, and if the numbers don't lie, the numbers don't lie. I would still feel, and I'd have to look this up too, but Goldobin's defensive metrics are not exactly in his favor either.
No, I would
And this
agree
is
with
a
that.
guy who continues to be uninspired in his own zone.
Yeah, and to be fair, Travis Green's criticism of him is kind of holding up in terms of him making I don't want to say lazy play, but he stops moving his legs and doesn't make the extra effort defensively when he could do.
Right. Agree or disagree on this, and we will move on from Nikolai Goldobin after this. The second half of Nikolai Goldobin's season will be the tipping point, if you will, on whether or not he's a Vancouver Canuck next season. Agree or disagree?
Agree.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, I'm rooting really hard for Nikolai Goldobin to succeed. But if we don't see some sort of marked improvement from Nikolai Goldobin at both ends of the ice by the end of this season, there may be some serious questions about Nikolai Goldobin's future in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Worst Canucks. Worst Canucks starting from the worst, and then we'll work back from there. And I think we'll only do 3 each year.
Okay. Eric Branson.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Number 2 for me. Oh, this is tough. I have 2 plum candidates, and I think they will go in order. But I'll still go with Tim Schaller as the second worst Canuck.
And I think that also ties hand in hand with expectation, I guess, because he was brought in.
Oh, no, I don't want to go Tim Schaller. I wanted to go somebody else. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to go Del Zotto.
Yeah, that was who I should have gone with. Damn it.
But I know what you mean. Like, we maybe didn't have that high expectations to begin with for Del Zotto, considering his history. But yeah, he has to be my next.
Okay, so after Del Zotto, who realistically should be the second worst Canuck? Relative to expectations again, Louis Eriksson.
Yeah.
Who had like
had a great night.
I want to joke.
Night.
He had like a quarter of his whole production last night alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not paying the guy $1 million for every goal he scores.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah, that's fair.
Next one. I think so we've done 4, so 1 more each.
Who would I pick next? Can I pick Nielsen?
Yeah, you can pick Nielsen.
Yeah.
Is that who you're going to go with?
Because I think we're pretty even going into this season, or maybe Markstrom and Nielsen.
But I don't think Nielsen has been worse than what we have seen from Derek Pouliot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, shoot. Yeah. Derek Pouliot's definitely
pretty bad. Pouliot, by the way, the exact same sort of boat as Nikolai Goldobin in my mind, as in if we don't see marked improvement from him, he could not be a Canuck next season.
Yeah, and I think he is a massive disappointment just because I thought he was so promising when he first came into the team.
Dishonorable mention, Sam Gagner.
Yeah. But
remember that guy?
I do. Poor guy didn't get much of a look when it came back, and I do think he was... I said this before, but he's a punishment for the failure of the July 1st signings. Apart from Roussel, who is...
Yeah, pretty
succeeded.
Good. Yeah, that's going to be our midseason grades for the best and worst, and then all those mediocre Canucks, they're right there in the middle. Jake Virtanen.
Yeah.
Who else is in there?
Oh, well, you didn't put Granlund in there, which is...
Granlund is disappointing, but he is not as disappointing as the rest of them, I find.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of been fading on him a while. Jay Beagle would be pretty...
Jay Beagle was going to be one of my other ones.
But I think Tim Schaller is far, surpassed in terms of disappointing July 1st signings.
We asked this about Eric Branson. For Jay Beagle, or for Tim Schaller, what does he actually do well that is not brought onto this team already?
Polite and rarely late.
Yeah. Only counts for so much. Back to wrap things up here. C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Anna, any C4 at the movies coming up?
Yes, sorry. I will get back to C4 at the movies. I know I took a little break over Christmas and it kind of turned into an extended break. So I'm back on the sports movies, backing away from the festive movies, which I just did. I know I only did Home Alone, which I thought was okay.
Okay.
I know there's been a bit of noise for me to watch Rocky because it's...
I would wholly endorse you getting into Rocky, actually.
I will do it if that's what the C4 listeners want, because we all know they're the boss. But I will just emphasize how much I hate boxing. I hate it. I just hate
because it's barbaric?
Yeah, kind of.
Whatever. It's still Sylvester Stallone.
But I assume it's not wholly about boxing, and it's more about a good story.
It is. It is about never mind. I'll let the movies speak for themselves.
So I think that's going to be my next one, and then after that, Moneyball. So Rocky,
I feel like you've put off Moneyball quite a long time now.
I have, but there's been just...
Maybe you should just knock off Moneyball. That way you can do all the Rocky movies after that.
Oh my God, in a row?
Yeah, you can't leave your house. You have to watch Rocky 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5 did not happen. Then you can pretend like you watched Rocky Balboa, which is Rocky 6. Then you have to watch the 2 Creed movies.
Oh my God. And I thought the Mighty Ducks movies was bad. And
I'll just give you the Coles notes of Rocky 5 and Rocky 6, and we'll call it a day there.
Okay. So, all right. It looks like it's Moneyball then. And then the entire Rocky franchise.
And before we go, a quick Fantasy League update.
Oh, must we?
I'm not doing well. And now my goal has now been changed from winning the league to just beating you and Chris.
One of which is very achievable. The other
I'm playing Chris,
achievable.
by the way, and I forgot to set my lineup for this week, and so I had a bunch of players on my roster, on my bench. That's not good. Shouldn't have done that.
I think...
Including Mikko Rantanen, by the way, who's on my bench. So as of this writing right now, Chris is actually beating me, and I cannot let that happen.
Yes,
but
that'll be
I believe friend of the show, Anders Lau, is at number 1, Gritty for Heart. It's very close at the top. Bearded Canuck 03, just behind him. Actually, they're in a tie for first. Pepper Needs New Shorts, who I believe... I can't remember who is Pepper Needs New Shorts. Sorry, the name is forsaking me, so I apologize for forgetting. But next is at number 4, Trev Goldie holding down the fort in a top 5 spot. But really anybody's sort of season, if you will, between spots 1 through 5.
Yeah.
And Chris, by the way, trotting along at 11th and 14th, respectively.
Yes.
Shame.
I know. We're not exactly a great advert from the host here. I would say in my... my other fantasy league, which is a franchise.
Yeah, but we don't care about those ones.
Well, I am dead last in that, so.
Oh, I'm in first in my other one.
But I already picked my teams. I can't do anything about it now.
First in my other league, by the way. Looking at my roster, it is dead.
Just don't start talking about fantasy football.
Oh, don't worry. We're done there for another 5 months. Before we go, Anna, anything that you'd like to say?
No, I just want to say again that we had such a nice time meeting the Evans brothers yesterday. So if any of our other listeners are making the trip to Vancouver, I know there's a lot of faraway listeners. So still shout out to them. But for all those based in Vancouver, we will hopefully in the future be putting together an event so we can.
Yeah, I believe in the plans for at least draft party a lottery party / draft party are still sort of taking shape, but that's one of our plans as well.
Yeah, so we love to meet our listeners.
Yeah, that'll do it for us here on the C4 Podcast. A reminder, if you're not following us on Twitter, you can do so at the C4 Podcast. Follow us on Discord as well. We're on the pinned tweets. If you check out the C4 Podcast on Twitter, follow us on Patreon and check out what we're doing on Patreon. Patreon.com/C4 Podcast if you want to learn more. Thank you to all of our subscribers who continue to support us and to our listeners who continue to listen to us. With all that said, we're out.
Thanks for listening to the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com.